Warning, the following audio transmission will forever change your outlook on society. You will no longer believe the narrative. You are about to wake up and see things for what they really are. News, facts, and opinions. This is the Doom Daily Show.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Doom Daily Show. I am your host, Jester Dooms. The email, doomdailyshow@gmail.com. The website, www.jestersvoice.com. On social media, @JesterDooms. Producer Scooter, how the hell are you? Good. Glad to hear it. Today is Wednesday, January 7th, 2026. Y'all been miswriting the daters. Everybody been pretty good about doing 2026. As I've gotten older, I've found that I've been better at not writing last year's date, right? I've gotten better at it over the years. I think it's because you make so many mistakes, then you kind of preface this in your brain of like, oh, I have to remember what the date is. And then eventually it just becomes force of habit. If you guys came in to the live yesterday, you would have saw me doing the old, tree removal on the property, which I will be back at that again today. My plan is to, before I go live on the TikTok, I plan on going down there with the dump trailer and the chainsaw and kind of going ham on moving some things around. Okay. And just basically long and the short, getting that tree cut up, getting it loaded in a dump trailer and getting it dumped somewhere out of the area so I can then start that process of grading all of that road over there. That is the plan. And because it's such a monotonous, boring thing, it helps being live on the TikTok and reading some comments from time to time as I'm plugging away at that what feels like endless grading. Okay. That's just the way it is. It just feels good to be over there doing the live and doing the grading. It's much better. So I'll be over there today, pissing away at that, hopefully in the early afternoon. Hopefully I get that tree out of there pretty quick this morning. It's a lot to cut up. Shouldn't take too long because it's already on the ground. And I'll be able to get the trailer pretty close. So as I'm cutting it, I could just cut and toss and cut and toss and cut and toss, right? Hopefully it works out that way. If you guys haven't done so yet, take the opportunity to leave me a voice message on the website. And this could be anything from show topics to opinions on the show, or if you have a question about something that was covered, or you say, hey, dude, look, maybe you got this wrong. You need to get a little bit more in depth about it. Give me some constructive criticism. That button on the top of that website is so cool. www.jestersvoice.com. Go to the website, top of the website, tap the button. You can record an audio message and it'll just get emailed right to me. Okay, so you do that. Wham, bam, I get the message right to my email. I could get direct feedback on the show from you guys. It's the coolest freaking thing on the planet. Take advantage of that. Or even if you just want to be like, hey, dude, just listen to today's show. It rocked and rolled. That's all. Like, whatever. But take advantage of it because it's your, tool and privilege as the listener to give feedback, right? So use that tool that's provided to you at your disposal to your advantage. I am worried I'm going to be dragging some serious ass, though, because I worked overnight last night and I'm already feeling the exhaustion. As you're listening to this lovely show in the morning, I'll be off doing my daily responsibility of getting all the people in the house to where it is they need to go, right? That's where we're at. I have been really kind of, I guess you could say, behind the eight ball with the homestead project, the house project, the building there. We had a setback happened today to where the block guy got sick and didn't show up, which I get it, shit happens, but we've been working on the same foundation since October. So to me, it's kind of like, okay, we're in a new year. We should be really honing in here and getting this shit knocked out, man. Like, and we got to get some shit done here. We're cranking right along, at a very slow pace, but it's like, I've got other things to do and I got to get this shit done. Okay. I was talking on the phone today with a friend and fellow creator and was, they're wanting to come back and visit again. They want to come back to visit the homestead and they're trying to figure out a good time frame to do it. And I'm sitting here trying to tell them what I have going on. And as I'm trying to communicate when would be good or when would be bad. I'm also trying to communicate the said responsibilities that I have, in kind of predicted dates and projected dates of things of when I expect to accomplish things. And as I'm going through these dates and we're talking about projects and things I got up and coming, it's like, man, I'm really falling behind the fucking 8 ball here. Like, I literally expected our still building to be going up this month. And now this is projected to be 3 more months down the road. Right. So I'm over here just kind of scratching my head like, well, shit, now I got to really either, light a fire under people's asses, or I got to get other people in here to do different things. Cause I'm just, just kind of more or less stuck, more or less at a standstill at this point. That's the whole thing, just kind of at a standstill, kind of on hold. So right now we're just kind of plugging right along, but I wish we were moving at a much faster pace. Anyway, moving on from that, I hope you guys have had a good week so far. It is officially hump day, so you're halfway there to the end of the weekend. I hope your donuts and coffee and breakfast this morning is fantastic. And again, that's something you could put in an audio message on the website. Hey, douchebag, I had eggs for breakfast. What'd you have? That's fine. We don't care. Just trying to get some traffic over to those audio messages, guys. It's a really cool feature that we've added to the website specifically for you, the listener, right? Producer Scooter works really hard in the background too to make sure you guys aren't bullying me. He screens all those to make sure I'm not being bullied by you guys, because he knows that I will reach through that computer and kick you right in the ass. He knows. And Producer Scooter doesn't want me to catch a charge, so he's in there screening those things and getting to listen to them first and maybe taking them to use on the show. Anyway, we'll be right back after these messages.
Can't get enough of Jester Dooms? Check out his other show, It's Doomsday Podcast, available on all podcast platforms. That's It's Doomsday Podcast.
Back to the show.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the Doom Daily Show. I am your host, Jester Dooms. That has not changed. Neither has the email, doomdailyshow@gmail.com. Okay, something I wanted to cover on yesterday's show, but we got into a rant about drugs, was this article here on the Epic Times by Jacob Berg. Trucking insiders reveal how licensing system enabled illegal immigrant drivers. Now, before we really tear into this article here, I want to say something, and that's that I believe there was more red tape being removed to fuel and prop up the economy somehow, some way. And I think we might see some insight into that with this article here. All right. When a semi-truck driver made an illegal turn on the Florida Turnpike in August of 2025, causing the death of 3 occupants in a minivan, debate ignited over the industry that trains truck drivers and the skill level of those who possess commercial driver's licenses. The Florida crash, along with several other fatal accidents caused by semi-truck drivers in recent months, triggered new regulations from the Department of Transportation, the DOT, on the trucking industry for the first time in 3 years and cast a spotlight on CDL mills. So-called CDL mills are companies that offer training for commercial driver's licenses, CDLs, required for truckers but otherwise sidestep state regulations and self-certify with federal government as trucker training companies. As the DOT proceeds with its removal of nearly 3,000 such providers from the Federal Motor Carrier Safety Administration, the FMCSA, registry, and puts an additional 4,500 training providers on notice due to potential non-compliance. Multiple trucker training providers said the changes are long overdue. So when they're talking about these mills, a lot of like what you're kind of seeing, and this is my understanding of this, is, how you see these companies advertise on billboards or on TV or on radio ads where it's like, hey, come to us, we'll train you and we'll get you your CDL and you'll be home every evening and weekend and blah, 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 and like all this bullshit, right? Well, it's kind of, there's a lot of companies out there that do this that are meeting the proper regulations. There are a lot that are. But you do have these offshoot ones that are just skating by. And, a lot of people forget how dependent our country is on truck drivers. They forget how much we need these truckers on the road. And there's a lot of truckers that listen to this show. There's a lot of truckers that I've come across on social media. I've got one trucker that's in my TikTok lives, like every one of them religiously. He's there. And you know who I'm talking about if you're listening, because you're like the only one. Anyway, so this is kind of the lifeblood of America. If the trucks weren't moving, we'd all starve. If the trucks weren't moving, our vehicles would stall out because they wouldn't have gas in them. If the trucks weren't moving, a lot of people would die because they're not getting their pharmaceuticals, right? So the trucks have to be moving, period. And they need to put asses in those seats, and they need to do so by whatever means necessary. And sometimes things get shady. Okay. Now, here we go. Let's continue into this article. The DOT announced the changes in early December of 2025, just days before the trucker rear-ended a car in Washington state, setting the vehicle ablaze and killing its 29-year-old driver. Trucker training companies told the Epoch Times in limited federal oversight before and after the agencies first overhauled the rules on commercial driver licenses in 2022 has led to a major discrepancies in training quality from one company to the next. Those changes implemented 3 years ago were intended to increase safety in the industry, but led to the proliferation of CDL mills, according to Ann Bazua, president of the Driver Resource Center, a commercial driver's license training company. These programs rush students through the process within a couple of days or maybe weeks, with just little or no real instruction, Bazua told the Epoch Times. They're focusing strictly on passing the test, giving them the basic knowledge that they would need to take the driving test, but without the other requirements that are necessary for them to build a building block. In some states, there's also a disconnect between the offices that issue licenses and those that track applicants, immigration status providers said. All right, now I do got to say something. I possess a license that's not quite a CDL, but above a regular commercial driver's license, so I can operate big, heavy fire trucks, right? And that test, to pass it, to get your initial permit for that test, is very similar to your CDL permit test. I mean, they're almost identical. I mean, because you're running air brakes, you're working with heavy trucks. I mean, they're very, very similar of a test. Now, when I had to go do my road course, I come to find out that the individual that was administering my road course had very little experience doing this. Now, it's because the centers that issue these, so like let's not get too convoluted with this when I say this. I don't want to muddy the waters, but it is a fact. The driver's license centers that issue licenses and the people that perform the test, they're also short fucking handed and short staffed. Okay. So I'm sure to some extent, you've got people in there that are relatively inexperienced and are maybe just pushing people through because they might not know all the rules and regulations like the back of their hand. So there could be truckers that aren't ready for the road yet that they're pushing through simply because they're not too familiar with the process and they're making mistakes that they're not seeing or that they don't know because they don't know all these things like the back of their hand, right? Human error due to inexperience in being put into a job they weren't supposed to be in due to agencies being short-staffed. Okay. Now that's said, moving on. Federal officials have pointed out that multiple truckers who caused fatal crashes this year, many of whom are listed in December 16th, 2025, report from the Department of Homeland Security, had all received their commercial driver's licenses in California and had entered the country illegally. Bum, bum, bum. So what do you think of that? The state that has the most regulations out of like any other fucking state is allowing illegals to slip under the radar and get these commercial driver's licenses. What do you think about that? We'll be right back after these messages.
Jester from It's Doomsday Podcast and the Doom Daily Show here. Do you ever find yourself overloaded with way too much information? Too many logins, too many passwords, too many websites for stuff you like? Yeah, I'm the same way. You don't have to worry about that with the Doom Daily Show and It's Doomsday Podcast. Let's make it simple. Just visit linktree.com/JesterDooms. Add it to your bookmarks. That way, when you need to find the right information, it's right there, under a tap of your finger or a click of your mouse. Go to linktree.com/JesterDooms. Get it, got it, done. Remember, no one has all the answers, but this will provide you with a place to start. linktree.com/JesterDooms. And now, on with the conversation. And here's Jester.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the Doom Daily Show. I'm your host, Jester Dooms. The website, jestersvoice.com. The email, doomdailyshow@gmail.com. On social media, @JesterDooms. Like, share, subscribe to the show, and give me that 1 week IRL, that 1 week in real life interaction. Give me that. Do it. All right, so to continue on, when we left at the break, we talked about how the illegals were getting their CDL driver's licenses through California. They were slipping under the radar, coming here illegally and obtaining a CDL. Go fucking figure, through California. In the case of the Florida crash, California officials have said the federal government told them the driver, Harjinder Singh, was in the United States legally with a work permit when they issued a commercial driver's license in 2024. Florida officials said Singh had entered the United States illegally via Mexico in 2018. The DOT also accused thousands of trucker training schools of failing to comply with federal guidelines and forging or manipulating their training data. So I'm sure that that's true, because I have seen companies do very shady fucking things for kickbacks. All right. I remember being at a company years ago and coming to find out, this was, God, I'm trying to think when this was. I believe this was under the Obama administration. I believe that's when this was. So you're talking 2009, maybe 2008, 2010, somewhere in that realm, I think is when this was. The company I worked for got so much money for hiring minorities. Okay. There was some sort of thing that they would get for hiring a minority, training the minority. Why can't I say that word today? Minority. Fuck. So they would get so much money for training these guys. They would get so much money for hiring these guys. Basically, so much of their training was covered and paid for, and so much of their salaries were paid for so long. Okay. And with this, what they did was they decided to basically create their own training facility on site and have a puppy mill for this industry. They'd bring guys in, they'd train them, and then within 90 days, they'd make work really suck for them. They'd fire them, and then they'd bring in new ones. Because in their eyes, why keep somebody on fucking payroll if you have to pay 100% of their salary whenever you could simply fucking fire them and bring somebody new, get paid to train them, their salary gets paid while you're training them, and then you're only responsible for 50% of their salary. Do you know what that does for a company? Do you know how much more money they can pocket? So they have the ability, doing this, to maximize profits and pocket way more money. Now, I imagine some of these training facilities probably got a lot of kickbacks from trucking companies, maybe from the federal government. I'm sure that they were getting kickbacks. I'm willing to 100% bet that they were. So in order for you to keep getting kickbacks, you have to show good numbers. How do you show good numbers when you're having immigrants come in and there's a language barrier, right? How do you have people passing CDL tests that can't read English when all your road signs are written in English? Okay, like, just look at this through kid glasses for a second. If I drop you in a foreign fucking country somewhere and you can't read their language, and I tell you to go to this street, make a right, go to this street, make a left, and go to this street and make another right, and then you're going to go through the stop sign and park at the building that says this on it, you're going to be like, dude, I can't do that. I can't read any of this shit. But you want them to pass a test. Last time I was on the fucking highway and I'm looking at a sign that says, I don't know, Dallas exit 3/4 of a mile on the right. If you don't read English, how the fuck do you know where you're going? I understand we have Spanish-speaking GPS and stuff, but come the fuck on. You can't read those signs. Way station, last one, 5 miles, mandatory stopping. That's not written in Spanish. I'm just saying. Anyway, moving on. The DOT also accused thousands of trucker training schools of failing to comply with federal guidelines and forging or manipulating their training data. Okay, we read that. Some trucker training companies are just shameless in advertising, according to Jeff Buckhart, the senior director of operations at the commercial driver's license training provider and Cora Education. In quotations, 1 day CDL, 3 days CDL, that's listed on their website, he told the Epic Times. All right, which is, that's not a thing. I don't feel comfortable with anybody operating a load going up and down the highway that's only had 1, 2, 3 day training and they're behind the wheel. Like, that does not seem okay to me. Now, some of the government issued regulations. The DOT's new crackdown on commercial driver's license training providers is one of the agency's most significant industry overhauls since the FMCSA's changes of the rules in 2022 on how trainees apply for their licenses. From 2022, trucker trainees have been subject to entry-level driver training regulations, which means they must complete training from a federally registered training provider before taking their commercial driver's license test. All right, we'll be back right after these messages.
Hey, producer Scooter here. And if you've made it this far, I just want to commend you for diligent listening skills. But also, I want you to take a moment since you've come this far with us. Send an email to doomdailyshow@gmail.com. Let us know where you're listening from. If you have any ideas for something you'd like Jester to address or talk about, send us an email. That's doomdailyshow@gmail.com. Thanks for listening.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the Doom Daily Show. I'm your host, Jester Dooms. Let's continue on. Wrap this up. Prior to that, the 2022, you could get your permit on your own, get trained by your uncle, your friend, and just go to the DMV, Department of Motor Vehicles, and pass the road test. John Marcus, the founder of Driving Academy, a commercial driver's license training provider, told the Epic Times, Burkhart said this offered a lot more flexibility for the consumer. He also serves as a chairman of the board for the Commercial Vehicles Training Association. He said the changes in 2022 aim to create a more professional environment in the trucking industry, with new rules requiring entry-level drivers to receive structured training. Now, just something I want to point out. When you talk about your federal government cares about you or they want to protect you or whatever else, think about your kids traverse these roads, your loved ones, your family members, whatever. And they're not regulating these industries enough to keep you safe on the roads you pay taxes on. That's how much they care, ladies and gentlemen. Okay. At the same time, the DOT also launched its training provider registry, which required all commercial driver's license training providers to self-certify that they meet a federal training requirement and to retain a record of trainees who have completed their courses. While the new driver training regulations aim to create central standardized training to improve driver quality nationwide, what resulted was the wild, wild west in the transport industry, Bazza said. Bazua, B-A-U-Z-A, Bazua, I guess. FMCSA allowed companies to self-certify that they were going to comply with the rules and regulations. No boots on the ground, she said. Right. Adding to the layers of complexity are state regulations regarding the delivery of truck driver training, which may either exceed or fall short of the federal guidelines. However, variances between oversight bodies at the state level and the curriculum and training content that they mandated were present even before the new federal regulations were rolled out in 2022, Burkhart said. He said, there was no difference in scrutiny from the federal government on legitimate and various illegitimate trucker training providers throughout the state. Marcus believes the federal government in 2022 was also trying to widen the industry and prevent a bottleneck of the actual trucking schools in part by allowing trucking companies and other entities such as county utilities, shipping carriers, and school districts to train their own employees by signing up as training providers. See, this is the fucking problem. The government says, hey, you have to adhere to these guidelines, but we suck and we can't make sure it happens. So we're going to give you the power to do this as long as you meet a few requirements. The end. Have fun out there on the road. Don't get our taxpayers killed because we want their money, but we really don't care if they live or die. There you go. That is how a lot of the unlicensed state schools kind of went underneath the radar and set up as trucking company to be a training provider, but ultimately providing training to the outside public, he said. What makes the process even more complicated, according to Marcus, is that each state has its own statewide agency that manages truckers, with some using their DMVs, Board of Education, or state transportation departments. Some of the providers, Marcus said, tell the federal government that they're a trucking company training their own employees, when in reality they were training the outside public without the proper licensings from the state itself, which the state should have been regulated as well. This has created a conduit for fraud, as many providers simply bypass the state oversight bodies and essentially check off boxes through the self-certification with the federal government, but without actually offering a proficient curriculum, Burkhart said. Most training providers in California are required to be state certified with the state's Department of Consumer Affairs, Bureau of Private Post-Secondary Education handling licensing. However, trucker schools can skip the state certification and self-certify in federal registry if they're a public education entity or if they offer a registered apprenticeship training program through California's Division of Apprenticeship Standards. Hoy, man, ladies and gentlemen, this just keeps going on. All right. So non-citizens with license. In late September, the DOT began addressing the commercial driver's license requirements for non-domiciled drivers, foreign nationals who don't reside in the United States or who have temporary legal presence in the United States. Now, ladies and gentlemen, I got to tell you, I think that we have a bigger issue here than what we're seeing within this. And we're going to go ahead, and I'm like looking at the time here, and I've got to get my boots on the ground and get moving here. So we will pick this back up tomorrow on tomorrow's show. We will continue into this article as far as where we left off with the illegals obtaining these licenses. Okay. And with that being said, we'll be back here for another exciting episode here tomorrow on the Doom Daily Show. Have a fantastic day, everybody. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. Make sure you're following. We will see you back here tomorrow. Have a great day, everybody.
News, facts, and opinions. This is the Doom Daily Show.